We've got Summerslam results and a brand new Divas champion this week on Wrestling with the Business. Welcome back to a new episode of Wrestling with the Business. I am the Professor Matt Lambert, and as you can see, I'm flying solo this week. This past week has been a series of unfortunate events. We promised to do a live stream for SummerSlam last weekend, and after several unforeseen occurrences cropped up, we were unable to follow through with that, unfortunately. Hopefully we can get it all together by the next pay-per-view at the end of the month. And then tonight, Saratoga is being hit with a bunch of power outages. The Insane Games studio lost some hardware, so we're not able to record there, but we still want to get all the content out to you as soon as possible, so I'm throwing together this video by myself to go over our normal news and rumors, weekly highlights, go over all the results of our SummerSlam predictions, and we'll try and keep it short and sweet. Nobody wants to stare at my ugly mug for an hour or so let's get right into it. Really quick for our weekly TV highlights, the main thing I want to touch on is AEW. My high spot for this week continues to be the MJF and Adam Cole storyline going on. This week they found themselves at a trampoline park, which in the beginning MJF was not a fan of. But then he realized he could play some dodgeball and started nailing the little kids with the balls, which he enjoyed thoroughly, let me tell you. If you haven't seen these vignettes, definitely go out of your way to find them. They've been very entertaining. And again, this is the best thing AEW's got on TV right now. Unfortunately, though, which seems to be another repeat, is my botch spot, which again is the women's division. To be fair, this is the second week in the row on Dynamite that the women have main evented. Hikaru Shida defended her newly won women's championship against Anna Jay. And it was a decent little match, but unfortunately there still doesn't seem to be any story direction for the division, and giving them the main event spot seems more like lip service rather than anything definitive or, again, anything leading to any sort of a story. So still a lot of work there to do, which we've discussed in the past on past episodes. But otherwise, I mean, both Dynamite and Collision were both very good shows as per usual. So go out of your way to check those out. Obviously, I don't have the other shows lined up here because usually we split that up among all four of us. But next week, hopefully, we'll all be back together in our regular studio and be able to bring you all the news and highlights from the weekly TV. But we do have the ratings here really quick. So all the shows from last week, SmackDown was at 2.248 million viewers, down a little bit from 2.3. Rampage was at 434,000, up from 324. Good on them. Collision suffered a lot. They went up against SummerSlam and also a major boxing match, so they were down to 417,000. Nearly dropped in half from the previous week when they were at 739. So again, going up against a major pay-per-view like that, that was expected. Raw, Monday Night Raw, 1.8 million, almost 1.9 million, which is up a little bit from 1.7 the previous week. NXT had 776,000, also up a bit from 717. And then this week's Dynamite was at 846,000, which was a little bit of dip from their 200th episode of 894. So all the ratings are pretty steady other than that Collision episode. Nothing really much changed. As far as I know, all the episodes this week were fairly decent. I heard SmackDown was the go-home show for SummerSlam wasn't really up to par, but we'll get into that a little bit more next week. Once everybody's around, we'll have everyone give their quick thoughts on everything we missed this week. Let's get into news and rumors. So, really quick, if you caught our Falls Count Anywhere episode this past Monday, Jeremy and I did a deep dive into the recent WWE Quarter 2 financial report. we are wrestling with the business, so we're going to bring you the business when things like this comes up. Overall, the financial report was very good for WWE. They made a lot of good strides financially this past quarter. So definitely check that out. It was a very interesting episode. This coming week, we're doing an episode on an article that Jeremy found where the writer of the article compared Attitude Era wrestlers to today's wrestlers. And spoiler alert, I was not a fan of this article. Watch it this Monday to see what the deal was, but let me tell you, it was not... It aggravated me. What else we got here? A lot of injuries ramping up this week. So we found out a couple weeks ago Kevin Owens has a rib injury. This week, his tag team partner, Sami Zayn, has an elbow injury. Those are the tag team champions. Not sure what's going to happen with the belts in WWE right now. But speaking of tag team champions, we've got Sonya Deville, the women's tag champ, who is out with an ACL injury. No plans on what's happening with the women's tag champs yet, but it doesn't look good. Looks like these titles are going to be vacated yet again. Seems like these championships are really cursed. They're always having issues with the women in those championships. And this past week on SummerSlam, Roman Reigns was injured in his main event match, apparently early on in the match. So far, the injury has been undisclosed, so we don't know what's going on, but he is expected to be on SmackDown tonight. So we'll have to see if anything comes about from that. And the last bit of news really quick here we're going to talk about is AEW All In. AEW is my show, so of course we're going to talk about it. Reports are saying that All In Wembley has sold more tickets now than WrestleMania 3. For all you wrestling fans, WrestleMania 3 up until 5 years ago was the highest attendance, highest selling WWE show, record-breaking of all time, wrestling show of all time. So it looks like All In has already beaten that record. They're up over 80,000 tickets sold now. We mentioned it on last week's show, Jeremy and I, that they had recently opened the stadium up to accommodate for 84,000, and they're up over 80 now. So less than 3 weeks away. They might not quite get that sellout, but they're damn close. And this past week, on the 2 weekly shows this week, they started announcing several matches for the show. So we already knew about MJF versus Adam Cole for the world title. That's going to be the main event. But in their segment this past week, Adam Cole and MJF challenged Aussie Open for the Ring of Honor tag titles at All In on the kickoff show. So MJF and Adam Cole are going to be wrestling twice in the same pay-per-view. They're starting the show and they're ending the show. So that'll be pretty cool to see. What else we got? FTR versus Young Bucks, Part 3, for the AEW tag titles. That's going to be a killer match. Their first 2 matches were fantastic in AEW, so I'm really looking forward to that one. Samoa Joe challenged CM Punk for the Real World Championship. I'm expecting we'll get an answer on that on Collision tomorrow night. Sting and Darby Allin are facing Swerve and AR Fox, Swerve Strickland and AR Fox in a coffin match. And they set up a tournament this week on Dynamite for a 4-way women's title match. So the main event match that I mentioned earlier, Hikaru Shida versus Anna Jay, that was the first match in the tournament. Obviously, Shida won, so she'll be defending her title in the 4-way match. Go figure. And Toni Storm is using her automatic rematch clause to get a bye into the match. So those are the first 2 participants in the 4-way. The next 2 matches are going to be Saraya versus... Oh, I should have looked this up before. Saraya versus Sky Blue Saraya is from England, so you can kind of guess she's going to win that match. And then Britt Baker will be in the fourth match. I can't remember right now who she's facing. So likely the four-way is going to be Hikaru Shida versus Toni Storm versus Saraya versus Britt Baker. That's going to be a great match. As far as I know, that's going to be the only women's match on the show, though. So, again, that women's division, they definitely need to do some work on that. But those are all the matches so far announced. There's a couple more that are rumored that haven't been confirmed yet. Next week on Dynamite, Kenny Omega is going to address what he's doing at All In. Chris Jericho is expected to have a match. The rumored match was supposed to be Chris Jericho versus Will Ospreay. Now, Jericho and Kenny Omega both have a storyline going on with Don Callis. So it'll be interesting to see how they work this. I assume it's going to end up being a tag match of Jericho and Omega versus Ospreay and Takeshita. Don't quote me on that. But I think that's what it's looking like they're heading towards. We'll have to wait and see in the coming weeks. Less than 3 weeks to go until the show, so we'll see what happens. But let's get into our main event here. So, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Summerslam was last weekend. If you watched our episode last week, you saw me and Jeremy made our predictions for the show. Dan and Adam were not able to be on the episode last week, but Dan was able to get his predictions into us before the pay-per-view. However, sorry, Adam, you didn't send in your predictions. So, by default, our brand new Divas champion is none other than Adam Perry. Way to go, pal. We score these things like a high school exam. No answer is a wrong answer. So when we're all back together next week, we will present the championship to Adam, and he will wear that championship with shame. But let's go over these matches. Overall, SummerSlam was a fairly average show, I think. It was nothing too crazy, oh my God moments. There weren't many surprises. There were no surprise returns. The only real surprise that happened was probably at the end of the main event and how that match finished, which we'll get into in a minute. But overall, I'd say it was a pretty average show. Match number 1, we'll start right out. Logan Paul versus Ricochet. Let me get my notes out here. So, overall, this was a pretty average match. I think, they've had a few interactions now. First at the Royal Rumble back in January, and then last month at Money in the Bank. And their short little stints in the ring, I think, were more exciting than this whole match played out. It was very clear that Ricochet was calling the match. There were a few spots, actually, where you could actually see him kind of directing Logan where to go. And again, I'm not knocking it too much. Logan Paul is still very new. He's very green, which, again, was very clear in this match. There were a couple of spots in particular where he did not sell the move properly. For instance, he was supposed to take a cutter, which you normally take as a front bump, landing on your face, on the front of you. And he turned and landed on his back instead. And he did that a couple of times. It really, if you know what you're looking for, it really takes you out of the match, I think. Again, he's still new. He's still green. I understand that. But it did take away from the match. The finish saw him receiving some brass knuckles from an unnamed, unrecognizable member of his entourage. Something like that. Logan Paul won the match. Jeremy, Dan, and I all picked Logan Paul to win. So, one match down. It's nice to see the Brass Knucks making a return, by the way. A nice heel move. Good way to finish the match. Yeah, not too bad. Match number 2 was the first of 4 main events. What are we doing, WWE? Come on. 4 main events? That is an oxymoron. There's no such thing. Anyways, Cody Rhodes versus Brock Lesnar. No stipulation on this match like we thought it would be. A decent match. This was their third match together. Couple of spots were a little strange. At one point, Cody Rhodes blatantly used the stairs as a weapon on Brock, but didn't get disqualified. So that was a little strange, but overall, decent match. Had a little wardrobe malfunction when Lesnar ripped his shorts open towards the end of the match. That was kind of funny. We all picked Cody Rhodes to win, and lo and behold, Cody Rhodes won. Decent little match. After the match, the most surprising part was after the match, Brock Lesnar literally went off script and shook hands, hugged Cody Rhodes, raised his hand, really showing him respect and putting the guy over. Triple H did say after the fact that he did go off script with that. That was not planned, so that was cool to see. And apparently Brock Lesnar will not be back in WWE for the rest of the year, so probably look to see him be a surprise entrant in next year's Royal Rumble in January. Match number 3 was the 25-man Slim Jim Battle Royal. Originally, we thought it was only going to be 20-man. And when we made our picks for this, there were only 6 entrants announced. Those were LA Knight, Shinsuke Nakamura, Tommaso Ciampa, Sheamus, Chad Gable, and Otis. We all picked LA Knight to win, and LA Knight won. This was a pretty good battle royal, though. Some of the other guys that were in it, well, all the other guys that were in it, Bronson Reed, J.D. McDonough, Omos, both of the Viking Raiders, both of Imperium, Ridge Holland, AJ Styles, Karrion Kross, Grayson Waller, Santos Escobar, Matt Riddle, Miz, Butch, Apollo Crews, Cameron Grimes, Rick Boogs, and the U.S. champ, Austin Theory. We'll get Jeremy's thoughts on this next week when he finds out the U.S. champion was in the match. We'll see what he thought about that. As I said, we all picked LA Knight to win. He won the Battle Royal. Pretty sure this was only put in there just for that sole reason, to get more people on the card and to give LA Knight a win so that they can say that they pushed LA Knight. Overall, it was a decent Battle Royal. Came down to the final 2 of LA Knight and Sheamus, which they had a good back and forth. And, it was a good match. Good Battle Royal. At this point, probably... No, I won't say it was the best match on the card at this point. Forget I said that. Match number 4, definitely the worst match on the card coming up now. Number 4, an MMA rules match, which means knockout, tap out, or pass out. Ronda Rousey versus Shayna Baszler. This was the first point where we diverged a little bit. Matt, I keep calling myself in third person. Jeez. Myself and Jeremy picked Shayna Baszler to win, and Dan picked Ronda Rousey. Shayna Baszler won with a tap-out win. Now, this was a little strange match. I mean, going into it, you weren't really sure who was the babyface and who was the heel, but the crowd was firmly behind Shayna Baszler at the entrances anyways, but during the match, the crowd was pretty dead for this. We were trying to figure out last week if this was going to be a legitimate MMA match or if it was going to be a WWE MMA match. And there were some points in the match where it did seem legit. I mean, Shayna definitely did get a black eye, got a little mouse under her eye from a knee, I believe it was. There were a couple of knees and a couple of punches that were very legitimate. But overall, this was definitely a worked match, and you could tell. I mean, I'm not a big MMA fan. I've never watched an entire match, but I'm pretty sure they're much more aggressive than they were in this match. And there's some not speculation, there's some rumors going around, some backstage talk that there were some creative differences in this match that is why it kind of was laid out the way it was. But the crowd wasn't really into the match, so it is what it is. Shayna won. Match number 5, though. Ooh. This might be my match of the night, I think. The Intercontinental Championship, Gunther versus Drew McIntyre. I mean, what can you say about this? These guys are fantastic. Gunther is so stinking good. He's really shown how good he is. Yeah, I didn't even write down many notes for this. I was just enjoying it so much. Myself and Jeremy, we picked Gunther to win. Dan picked Drew. Gunther walked away with the win. He is still Intercontinental Champion, and I fully expect he's going to beat Honky Tonk Man's record, which I think is only just a couple weeks away. I want to say it's beginning of September, like the 7th or something like that. After September 7th, he should be the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion. So now we get into the final 3 matches, the final 3 main events. Again, does not make sense. Match number 6, World Heavyweight Championship, Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor. Oh, man, dude, this one. So we talked about it last week. Supposedly Seth Rollins has some nagging injuries that he was planning to take time off for, but he's still the World Heavyweight Champion. We all picked Finn Balor to win, and Seth Rollins won the match. He's still the champ. And this past Monday, he went into a program with Shinsuke Nakamura. Nakamura turned heel this past week on Raw, and looks like he's the next champion contender, which doesn't make sense. For this match, the crowd was pretty dead. I mean, this match and the next one, the crowd was very, very quiet. I mean, Rollins and Balor, I mean, they put on a great match. They're fantastic wrestlers, so you would expect their match to be very good. They mirrored a lot of the stuff from their first match 7 years ago for the inaugural Universal Championship. Balor did the running power bomb, buckle bomb onto the barricade outside, which is what hurt his shoulder 7 years ago. Fantastic match. The crowd wasn't into it until Damian Priest came out. He was teasing a cash-in. Well, we thought he was teasing a cash-in. I think Finn thought he was teasing a cash-in, but actually he came out to help Balor win the match and win the title. There was miscommunication. Eventually, Rhea and Dom came out as well. Excuse me. But there was some miscommunication, and they're definitely sowing seeds of discontent in the Judgment Day. The distraction actually led to Finn Balor losing the match, getting stomped on the briefcase, and I wasn't crazy about the ending. The match was fantastic. The ending was a little bit too overproduced for me. So I wasn't crazy about that. Great match, though. Match number 7. Again, the crowd was not into this. The WWE Women's Championship Triple Threat. Asuka the champion versus Bianca Belair versus Charlotte Flair. So this match ended exactly the way I thought it was going to end, but involving a different person. So the match ended with Bianca Belair winning the Women's Championship. She hurt her leg in the match, started to get pulled out of the match by the trainers and the doctors and everything, ran back in to have that big underdog babyface comeback, wins the title, and then Io Sky cashed in her Money in the Bank, beat Bianca Belair, and is the new WWE Women's Champion. I said that was going to happen, but I thought Charlotte was going to be the one to win the belt, make it 15-time champion. She's 14-time champion now. So I thought she was going to win it, and then Io was going to cash in on her, but it was with Bianca instead. Again, WWE does not care about Asuka at all. It's really disappointing. So for this match, I picked Charlotte to win. Dan and Jeremy both picked Asuka to win. All three of us were wrong. Technically, Bianca won the match, but I was right on the cash-in. Io Sky cashed in and is the champion. And finally, we get to the main event. Tribal Combat for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship and the title of Tribal Chief. Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso. Again, this one was pretty predictable. All three of us picked Roman Reigns to win, and he did. This one was confusing. The Bloodline story has been the hottest thing in WWE, and all along there have been any number of different ways they can go with the storyline, which is what makes it so interesting. But the way this one turned out, it just doesn't make sense to me. So the big surprise at the end of the match, the match as a whole was a typical Roman Reigns match. There were some slow spots. There were some hope spots where Jey was getting the upper hand. He would get shut down. Solo Sikoa interfered. It was tribal combat, so it was anything goes, basically. No DQ match. The finish, though, Jey was about to win the match, and his brother Jimmy came out and pulled him out of the ring and super kicked him. But that doesn't make sense to the story they've been telling. The whole time throughout this story, it has been that Jimmy would never turn on Jey and Jey would never turn on Jimmy. But that's exactly what happened here, and there's seemingly no explanation for it whatsoever. I assume we're going to find out the reasoning for that on tonight's episode of SmackDown, but it made no sense to me at all. And, the whole match, oh my God. From the time that they started making their entrances to the time the bell rang at the end was like 48 minutes. It was such a long time. That was with the entrances and everything. It was, wow. It was a long match. And again, Jimmy coming out was the only surprise. There was no Rock. There were no tribal elders. Go back and watch our episode last week because Jeremy put down an impressive theory that I was really looking forward to seeing, that Roman would still beat Jey, but he would do it in such a way that the tribal elders would come out and strip him of his tribal chief title and give that to Jey. So Roman could still be unbeaten. He could still be the champion, but he wouldn't be tribal chief anymore. So that just seemed like such a more interesting story and direction to go in than just Jimmy turning on Jey. It's just kind of fell flat. And I kind of feel like the rest of the crowd in the arena felt the same way. But yeah, that was the show. Overall, pretty average show. I'd give it a 3 out of 5. It was enjoyable. There was nothing outstandingly bad about it, but there was nothing really must-see about it either. So, I don't know. Put in the comments what you thought of the show. What was your favorite match? What was your least favorite? Did the Logan Paul Ricochet match go viral like they wanted it to? Let us know in the comments. We'll be getting everybody's thoughts on this next week when we're all back together in the studio and see what everyone else thought of the pay-per-view. But overall, I'd say it's a 3 out of 5. Fairly decent. But I think that's all I've got this week. As we said, new Divas champ, Adam Perry. So we'll be giving him the belt next week. And, see how he likes holding it for a little while until the next major pay-per-view. Again, hopefully we'll be able to do live stream. Let's see, we got All In at the end of the month, AEW All In from Wembley on the 27th. The week after that, the first weekend of September, will be AEW All Out. That's a little weird scheduling thing. We're going to have to wait and see how that turns out. I don't know. But, so stick to our social medias. We're trying to update those on a regular basis. We're putting up some shorts now, short videos for you guys to watch. See how that goes. And hopefully we won't have any more of these hiccups, so we'll be able to give you all the gang together, giving you all the content we possibly can. But in the meantime, if you keep watching, we'll keep wrestling with the business.